Look your driver's license real quick if I could. See, he's right up on that van, man. He was right up on the back end of that van. Pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay. Cool. Where are you headed?
We're going to actually inside. Well, we're coming from WSU, and we're standing early.
What's WSU?
Yeah, I go to the university basically. They were listening to this incident that was occurring up there. There was a shooting incident. That is SWAT team and everything.
So we're okay. I'm having a hard time hearing you because of the traffic. So you're coming from Washington State University,
yeah,
and you're going where? Oh,
we're going to be going to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're slightly punched because we're driving for hours.
Hours, days.
Hours to drive. Well,
Yeah.
almost a day.
Okay. And what did you say about some SWAT team thing? Or
Yeah,
something?
there was a mass shooting and everything. We don't know if it was a mass
Where?
This was essentially what ended up happening
Interesting.
Well, it's horrifying because he's just going to the university, you know what I mean?
So y'all work at the university there?
I actually do work there.
Oh,
PhD in criminal
okay. Okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that incident. Just yesterday, or?
This happened about an hour and a half ago. We're still wrapping it up for investigating. I'm not sure there's two shooters because they did shoot somebody.
Let's see.
And then we don't know about that actually. They were there, they were shooting out of the window or something.
Interesting.
Hop in the car, watch it go vroom, vroom. I told her mom that I was soon. Knew as a child, back in the womb. Oh, one step back, I need my room. Hop in the car, watch it go vroom. I'm in a whip, so I gotta zoom.
A social media group known as the Nerdbird Mafia.
That to the tomb. They in the way, they gotta move. I got a gas, they running on fumes. Told them way back, it's something new. It's me and Dan, you gotta choose. I'm taking
For Nicole McKiernan, a holiday wish answered. Her 15-year-old daughter, Haley Shell, back home.
Don't take offense if I do not oblige. I can't belabor like none of these guys. They hit me once and I'm caught in the class. I was so low, but I'm back on the rise. It's real. Hop in the car, watch it go vroom, vroom. I told them all that I was soon. Knew as a child, back in the womb. Oh, told them step back, I need my room. Hop in the car, watch it go vroom. I'm hopping now I gotta go. I'm looking back, they not even close. I had a 4, now I need a ghost. I got a wave like I'm on the coast. Same ones are down and I dare the show. So way that I'm balling, they think I'm a pro. I'm getting sick by the money I gross.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Eva. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Eva is blowing dank vape bombs my way. Likely going to set off the fire alarm again. Like, she is the master of, when I first met her, she set off a fire alarm in Savannah, Georgia. Entire unit was outside at 1 a.m. She was jumping on my back, and she continues doing that through every state she goes. How are you, Eva?
Thank you for that. I actually set the smoke detector off this morning, but that was because I was cooking the bacon too high for a minute there. That was a fun time in Savannah. I still wish we had that on video. I'm doing great. We had spaghetti for dinner. It was quite the eventful day around here. You are a famous celebrity now, so that's kind of cool.
My ugly bug was on TMZ. I chose not to use a mask and everything. Jen, it's my body, my choice. Okay. But an eventful day of new facts for, and I'll get that clip up there in a little bit. I got a short We got a mediocre show for you guys. I got a short little humor clip from today. I am working. Eva, I'm blessed to have a woman that understands a complex man like me. I've been micro transitioning, working on micro transitioning. So I'm going to show you the preparation for that. But first, Eva, where do you want to start?
Ooh, I don't know. I'm gonna leave it up to you tonight. I'm not sure. We have a variety of things to actually kind of go over tonight.
I'm going to start with, let's start with, I know everyone wants to talk about Idaho, but there's a story that's been developing out of Massachusetts. Brian Walsh, Ann Walsh, I'm going to play that clip. And I think this clip also goes into the Kohberger case, so we may get a multi one here. So here we go.
New information revealed during the arraignment of the husband of a missing woman from Cohasset this morning. Prosecutors say he was caught on camera buying hundreds of dollars of cleaning supplies in the days after his wife had been reported missing. Police say they also found a bloody knife and blood in the basement of the couple's home. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm Paula Eben. Brian Walsh is accused of misleading police in the investigation into his wife's disappearance, and we learned how during the arraignment, which we brought you live on CBS News Boston. We have team coverage for you here at noontime, starting with WBZ's Louisa Moeller, who has the stunning new details from court. Louisa?
Yeah, Paula, there were some truly astounding details that came out of court this morning, namely that investigators say they found blood and a bloody knife in the basement of the Cohasset home where Brian and Anna Walsh live. Now, Brian Walsh was walked out of the Cohasset Police Department this morning on a charge of misleading the investigation.
Look at the smile. I mean, sociopath,
at one
right?
point, he appeared to smile. Now, according to court documents, Brian told police he last saw Anna on January 1st before she left for a work emergency, but Anna has not been seen in over a week. Today, a prosecutor told the judge that Brian neglected to tell police that he took a trip to Home Depot. That's after Anna was last seen. And on that trip, police say surveillance video shows Brian buying $450 worth of cleaning supplies in all cash while wearing a mask and surgical gloves. Anna's phone also pinged in their Cohasset home on January 1st and 2nd, according to investigators. And of course, the blood revelation. Here's more from the prosecutor.
Surveillance check during the investigation indicated that defendant, in fact, on January 2nd, sometime after 4 o'clock, went to the Home Depot, which is in Auckland. He's on surveillance at that time, purchasing about $450 worth of cleaning supplies. Police obtained a search warrant and actually searched the house with crime scene services. During that time, they found blood in the basement. Blood was found in the basement area, as well as a knife, which also contains some blood.
He's not going anywhere. He hasn't gone anywhere since January 1st. He's been in the house. That's true. He's been in the house with police almost 12 hours a day.
So, Eva, you want to give us some background here? I mean, this is wild. It's almost like he studied at DeSales University.
He might have studied at DeSales. So Anna Walsh has technically been missing since January 1st. I believe that's last time anybody's confirmed her to be alive. She wasn't reported missing until the 4th. And it was because the employer actually contacted the husband, and then they kind of both reported her missing. I believe she was reported there in her hometown and then also in BC. And then, like you heard in the clip, he was on tape on surveillance at the Home Depot on January 2nd. So, he's kind of had a couple of days head start in all of this. And at first it was believed, when we first started talking about this a couple of days ago, this case, you were like, well, what's going on with this? And I was like, well, they say the husband was asleep and he was cooperating. And then boom, this all out of the way. He actually, we just found out earlier this evening that he, in this process, besides them finding blood and a bloody knife in the house, he Googled how to dismember a body and how to dispose of a 115-pound woman. Oddly specific.
Circumstantial.
it's not circumstantial. Yeah, so that, leads us to believe that he may have graduated from DeSales University. Guy was also, I was watching a news clip earlier when we were kind of digging into this a little bit. He's been accused of like fraud and theft and all kinds of stuff. He's, already on probation and everything. He's not the brightest guy in the world.
Yeah, not very bright. And we were talking about the differences in, Massachusetts, Connecticut was near there, but like just the bail, like the high bail amounts, and you can zoom in on Google Earth and see that part of Massachusetts and know it's a pretty affluent part. But Connecticut, we talked about Photos Doulos. I've been comparing the Photos Doulos warrant to Bryan Kohberger's, and I told you, like, each time they press Photos Doulos, knowing that bail amount was going to go up, and sometimes that can financially strain somebody to the point of, in his case, he took his own life. I don't think they're going to give. It'll be an interesting bond hearing. The judge said they would have a hearing again on bond. I don't know if that'll necessarily occur on Thursday, but for those of you that aren't following along on the Kohberger hearing on Thursday, they pushed that earlier. So that's now going to be 8 a.m. Pacific time, correct? It was originally 10 or 11 Pacific time, but that doesn't matter what it was. It's now 8 a.m. Pacific time.
Yes, they bumped it from, I believe it was originally 10 a.m. to 8 a.m., which means we all have to get up at the butt crack of dawn to watch that.
No, because that's over there at time. So it's on, it will be 11. We'll be streaming it. So we'll be up and already there. So I want to get right into something that somebody pasted into Twitter comments today. Thank you for doing that. Let me get rid of the source banner because it doesn't belong there. It was a video of a news agency that did an interview with Kaylee's father, and he touches on wireless. And I grabbed the screens, put it on Twitter, and then went back to provide the video for this stream like an hour later, and they had removed the video off of YouTube, which is odd, but nonetheless, we have it. Eva went to their website, grabbed it. We're going to play it, and we're probably going to play it twice, but let's watch, let's listen. And then for me, it means several different things. We'll discuss that. And then obviously want to hear from folks out there. We'll open up the phone line. We have one case that I want to get to tonight as well. So here we go with this.
Makes you sick. It's sickening, I'm sure, to see the information that came out in the affidavit about how he had been by the house multiple times prior to the murders as well. I don't know if you guys knew that early on.
Yeah, and close enough that he was touching their Wi-Fi. His phone was touching their Wi-Fi. Yeah, so you know how close that is. If you've had a laptop, you walk out into your front yard, you're not going to get too far. So he was touching their Wi-Fi. His phone was touching their Wi-Fi. Yeah, so you know how close that is. If you've had a laptop, you walk out into your front yard, you're not going to get too far. So
you don't think there's going to be some kind of connection that will explain this?
No, what kind would? I mean, like, my girl's bullying him, or what kind of behavior could explain somebody being this brutal to another human being? I mean, he was probably obsessed with just their overall looks and their social media accounts and the fact that they were close, You
can't imagine what a young girl is going through when something like that happens. What is your take on the fact that the guy walked past her and she didn't call 911 for several hours and she'd heard some things? I mean, what's your take on all that?
I know one time in the past that somebody was pretending to break into my house, and Kaylee hid under her bed and called, 911 and was too scared to even talk. And then she called me at work, and I prepared her to jump out that window because I didn't know that it was a practical joke. So I think that's a natural thing for girls to freeze up and lock up and, put themselves in a position of safety. And I don't hold that against them. I've already checked into the, could they have lived? Was it a slow bleed out or something? And it wasn't. So there's one bad guy here that I have to focus on. All those other things will slowly come out. I'm sure they catch other people's attention, but for me, I really have to focus on the individual who is responsible for this. And that is a big enough challenge an obstacle that we have to overcome than to worry about, two girls that, were just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
So, I mean, he goes into several different things there. I chopped the video and obviously stitch it. And the wireless thing is interesting to me. There's some, let me just go down the chats really quick while I have them up in front of me. Folks that are mentioning or citing the gag order is only applicable to attorneys, law enforcement, and people legally involved in the case. It doesn't include him. So he's allowed to speak freely. And I've said this on a previous stream. This is really a catch-22, right? Because you can't force a journalist to reveal their source. It's just a loop. It's a loop, and unfortunately, the gag order and the gag order was put there by the defense. That's important to note. The motion for the gag order was put in by Bryan Kohberger's defense. But nonetheless, he hits on this wireless issue, and really, I said this needs some clarity because Kohberger could only have connected to their wireless, from my purview, 3 ways. He was given the password, right? He wasn't given the password, but he was there at the house at some point and observed the password on the router itself. Or 3, he hacked it. We see in that warrant he has cloud criminology sort of experience. So, and I don't think that course would go into something like hacking, like the actual practice, the practice of how to do it, right? It gives you a background and course on why you should know about these things, but I don't think their college course gets into actually hacking. So it raises some questions when those are the 3 options provided. And, and I've said this, wireless routers don't look for phones. It's not the way it works at all. A wireless router broadcasts. You see it in your list of available wireless SIDs. We call them SIDs, SSID, but their name, right? And those names oftentimes can be hidden. You may look at your phone and see 6 access points. There may be 11 there. There are higher end enterprise wireless access points that could do the sort of thing. It could search for other access points, right? We call them rogue access points that are interfering with our channel. So if I'm at a university, right, and I have an apartment next to me, I want my wireless network clean. And so sometimes these enterprise wireless systems will scan and adjust their channels or even isolate the rogue access point. But the access point that we're talking about for these college students isn't like that at all. And notice what I said, the other enterprise access points, they scan other access points. They're not scanning for phones. You're not scanning for the millions of devices. You'd kill everything on that network. So it's very interesting that he says this. It's very interesting that they pull it so quickly from YouTube because it can imply so many different things, and I'm not going to jump here and guess what it means. But it's starting to paint a picture perhaps that he's been here before, and I don't know what the reasoning is. There's another piece here where Sleuthy has wisely observed, why turn on the phone at all when coming back to that scene the following day, 9 a.m., right? Why turn it on at all? And some of these things, as I revisit them, they scare me a little more. It's almost like he purposely did these things. He studied these things. And quite frankly, that tells me that he turned it on because there was likely a pattern, right? They've noted in that warrant, there's 12 times he's been around them. Well, perhaps that was Sunday at 9 a.m. during a meeting, during a farmer's market, during something. I don't know what that something was. We're all looking for that something. And I will also say, before I pass it off to Eva, I think people have been focused on what you can hear and observe. The only information that we have is from Steve, right? Kaylee's father. And it's great. But where's Zaina's parents? Where's Ethan's parents? Because I'm starting to look at patterns of girlfriends that are coming out. And I'm starting to look at what Zaina was doing with this nonprofit marketing company through the college. And look, they did outreach marketing, nonprofit, out to the Pullman area. It says it right on the website. So when you start looking for links and you start looking at Bryan's history of women that he's attracted to, when you start listening to the narrative of friends who have observed his behavior, where You hear, this guy says he can go out and get any girl he wants. Well, what if he can't get that girl because she is with a male that she loves, and he gets obsessed? There's all different scenarios that played out. And I guess what I'm saying is to perhaps focus. A lot of people have focused on the channels of communication that we are hearing and seeing, and oftentimes we forget about the other variables in the story. Eva?
Yeah, this was this kind of all had us on our interested today when this interview went up. And I think it was really odd that it was pulled down. It's still on the website. The source is KTVB7. It's still on their website the last time that I checked, and it's the full interview. But it did get snatched down pretty much everywhere else pretty quickly. And we wonder if it was because of what he mentioned about the Wi-Fi. It's hard to say what he really meant, because we've learned through all of this, he's kind of like a simple guy, he's not like this tech genius or anything. So he's just speaking like layman's terms. So when he's saying he touched their Wi-Fi, I want to know exactly what he means by that, what he learned. Did it connect to the Wi-Fi? Did it attempt to connect to the Wi-Fi? But from the way you've explained it to me, it has to be pretty much one or the other. That the biggest question in my mind, because of all of this, has he been in that house before? If his phone tried to connect to Wi-Fi, we know that he turned his phone off during the murders, okay? But you can put your phone in airplane mode, and it will still, if you go somewhere where you automatically connect, like if I go away from my house, put my phone on airplane mode, when I come in, my phone will try to connect to my Wi-Fi. It automatically connects when I come in. Or I don't know. There's so many more questions now because of this. But the biggest one, was he ever in the house before? Did he know them? Did he have the Wi-Fi password?
The other thing that stood out to me today, and folks are pointing out another post that I can't say is accurate or inaccurate. But what I can say is, in reading the warrant, take note of the language that they use in these warrants. Received the DoorDash order. Zaina received the DoorDash order. She didn't order it. It didn't say she ordered it and received it. She received the DoorDash order. I'm reminded this evening when Eve and I were talking, when her and I met and we were talking, she had gotten sick, and I sent over, I think it was DoorDash or Uber Eats, all the way from Connecticut. And the only thing the app asked me while I was there in Connecticut was, "Are you sure? Seems like you're pretty far away. You're sure?" I said yes. And Eva, did you get your food over in Florida?
I did. You sent me soup while I was sick, and it was very sweet.
That's not the point. The point is related to the case. Don't get all sappy. Okay. I want to highlight we're going to talk about bail in a moment. We're going to talk about this wireless and get the comments, but I want to highlight a case. I know there's been a lot, oh my God, a lot of talk about the roommate. It seems like you even mention it. It's not even in a negative way. Just ask a question about the timeline related to the roommate. And man, there's a whole team of folks out there who feel some type of way about it. Even posting, like I've normally done a Daily Mail article today, people were like, whoa. But we do it all the time for cases, and no one's really ever had issue with it. But there has been a disparity, and I'm not going to back away from that. My position stands. But I want to highlight a case in which disparity, we've dealt with it before. You guys have seen these streams before. There was a case that Eva was dealing with and interacting with, but here's one tonight that we wanted to highlight. Here we go.
Christopher Miller has now been missing for going on 27 days after he was last seen by Wisconsin State Patrol going southbound at the 177.6 mile marker on I-39, I-90, just after the Avalon Road, Highway 11 exit in Janesville, Wisconsin. The night he was last seen, Wisconsin State Patrol, Janesville Police Department, and Rock County Sheriff's Department were all involved in the search for Chris. Rock County claimed to have had dogs there within 2 minutes, but they were never brought to the site Chris's car became disabled and where he fled in the whole 2 hours of footage family received from State Patrol. There also was no evidence in the footage that drones were used like they claim. The investigation itself had been handed over multiple times to different departments since November 19th, when Chris was last seen. State Patrol was in charge November 19th through 20th. They handed it over to Rock County Sheriff's Department on November 21st. Rock County was the lead investigating agency from the 21st through the 28th of November. Rock County only searched for Chris for a measly 3 days. There has been a complete disregard for Chris's safety and well-being. Rock County then handed over the investigation to Madison Police Department on November 28th and told the family they would no longer be searching for Chris. Their last search was done on November 27th. Chris is a beloved son, father, friend, cousin, and nephew. He has a family that is begging for your help and for answers.
So, asking folks in Wisconsin for some help this evening. Someone sent that over. I'm not going to pretend that I've had a lot of time to review the case, but I promise you that we're going to retouch the case later this week when we go live. So, I wanted to get into some quick humor, and then we're going to get into this whole roommate situation. But first, since it's so controversial, Eva, I'm going to play some controversial humor.
Prosthetic tits. I'm looking to micro transition, like not full time, just like 15-minute increments.
That I have are going to be the things like this.
Would that look like I got titties though? No.
Very, very, very small.
Very small, like A cups. I want to go with like a B or C. So
I would definitely try Amazon that.
Thank you.
I have.
I'm gonna order them from Amazon. I didn't think you guys would have them actually.
Sometimes even I'm surprised. She kept her cool and she embarrassed me. I stopped my humor for the day when that happened. But here's a news clip. I don't know who the source is, but you'll see quickly talking about the situation, the Kohberger situation, and specifically about the roommate.
Let's bring in former FBI Special Agent Jonathan T. Gilliam. Jonathan, great to have you. All signs increasingly pointing to the husband. What's your take?
Well, I think regardless of what the authorities say about the theft of those paintings in the past not bearing an effect on who he is now, I'd say it really does point to his character. And I think interestingly enough, Todd, is the fact that probably what is going to show whether or not he was anywhere close to the house or where we know that her cell phone went off, completely turned off, and then she never arrived at the airport. So I think these cell phone records, just like we see in Idaho, the towers and the traces and where these phones can go is going to tell a big part in his guilt and a big part about where she stopped being noticed as far as cell phone tower information goes. And I think it's safe to say, Todd, that if she didn't get to the flight, that probably most likely she will be found if she's deceased, she'll be found within a distance that it takes to drive to the airport. She will be somewhere in that distance.
We'll be monitoring this case closely. To the Idaho case that you mentioned, officials say they're puzzled as to why the surviving University of Idaho roommate waited 8 hours to call police after seeing a masked figure walk past her in her home that night. Former FBI agent Jennifer Koffendaffer, who's actually joining us next hour, tweeted the following. Want to get your thoughts on the back end. Let's talk about DM, Dylan Mortensen, the roommate who called the authorities. 21 years old. It was late. She was possibly under the influence when face-to-face with a stranger in black just feet away, froze due to fear, and locked herself in her bedroom. Koffendaffer says she believes she passed out from trauma, fear, and stress. Says, quote, "To think you could be killed is gripping, I know." Why do you think the roommate didn't call for 8 hours?
I think she probably went back into her room and was so frozen with fear. I'm not sure if she was intoxicated. I'm pretty sure that the rest of the house was. And regardless whether she was or not, she probably sat there until she fell asleep. And as crazy as that sounds, it happens a lot. I talked to 3 people in the last week alone who had break-ins and ran. One person actually ran towards the attackers and hid in a corner, and the other people froze. And in some cases, as many as 4 to 5 hours passed before they realized they had been huddled in the same spot. So this is not uncommon.
And I think we have to realize we don't know what we would do in that situation because most of us have not been in that situation. Meantime, some people online saying Kohberger actually attended a vigil for the victims. Would you be surprised by that?
No, that's actually pretty common for killers to somewhat show back up at the crime scene or at a vigil. And as we saw that he returned back to the crime scene even later the day after he allegedly did this, I don't think it would be a far-fetched thing for him to show up to this vigil. But I will tell you this, I don't know how much that's going to play. One problem I'm having, Todd, is with these internet sleuths. I didn't have a problem with them at first, but I think now the problem is that they are inciting things. In the case of the girl who, the roommate who didn't call police immediately, they're making mountains out of molehills, and they're actually, in the case of this girl, causing the public to turn on certain people. And they've done this with several people throughout this case. So the online sleuths are becoming a problem, and also mainstream media is starting to report things that they say that don't really make any difference at all to the entire case.
Jonathan T. Gilliam, great expertise as always. Thank you, sir.
What do you think, Eva?
This was a really hot topic today. I don't want to push anybody's buttons, but at the same time, I have some pretty strong feelings about it. Me and you were actually tweeting quite a bit about this morning. The thing that I keep hearing everybody say is you don't know what you would do in that situation. Right. I wasn't in that situation. I don't know. I'm allowed to ask questions, though. We're asking questions, we're speculating, and I think people keep getting this confused with passing judgment. No one's passing judgment, at least not for us. There's no judgment here for me, but I can say that it's odd to me. You read the probable cause affidavit, and things just don't make sense. I feel like there's natural questions there. Why did she wait so long? Why weren't police called until noon the next day? We had no idea for the longest time throughout all of this until the affidavit came out the other day that she actually saw the guy in the house. That was, a complete mystery to all of us. So this is just in the last few days that we've found this out. It kind of blew all of our minds, and naturally a lot of questions came up from that. The one being, why did she see somebody and not call the police? Are there 100 different scenarios that could make sense? Yes, but the only way we get to those scenarios is by asking the questions and speculating. Could she have been so intoxicated that she froze up in fear and went in and passed out and then just kind of fell into a sleep for the rest of the night? That's absolutely possible. When you're in a traumatic situation, your body has the fight, flight, or freeze response. You go into, one of the three, and it's absolutely possible. She froze, she passed out, she went to sleep. I'm curious to know how intoxicated she was, because that would add a lot more up for me if she was heavily intoxicated. But she remembered enough to be able to give those statements to law enforcement, to say that she saw somebody with a mask, that he had bushy eyebrows, which way he walked through the house. She was able to remember the noises she heard, that she thought somebody said this, thought somebody said that the dog was upstairs making noise. So, I don't know. There's a lot of questions still for me.
And I think that's the part that's frustrating for me, is that they've been nothing but questions, at least from this community, right? The community that we're in on Twitter, and generally speaking, the people we interact with daily, there's been no accusations, right? Implying that she's drinking when you see videos and video cam footage from prior incidents and the house is unattended, people are partying, and that night people were coming home intoxicated. You see it on video footage at the food truck. You're asking questions, and this gentleman on Fox is saying, you're inciting the public. No, there's a very big difference between asking questions, and I want to also say that the likelihood that this girl is on Twitter reading comments is probably very low right now. And I'd say if she is, don't. It is what it is. It's 2023. It's the internet. I don't know. There's a very big difference between inciting the public, to go and protest and do all this bullshit we've seen on other cases. There's a difference between that and asking questions that are logical in nature. And then within the same day, you hear Kaylee's father say, well, he was touching the wireless. Well, that's why we're asking these questions. Who did he know? What's the motive? And if there's not, and it's looking more like, I guess we'll know in time, but I don't know. If there's no history of crime, there's something that pissed this guy off. And I'm not saying it's right at all. I'm just saying it changes how you think about a crime like this. I don't know. And I guess generally speaking, what I've been trying to say is that people have the right to freely discuss what's in a warrant without being attacked by other side that is rushing blindly to defend a woman that no one really knows anything about. And it's the same hypocrisy, right? If you're rushing to defend her and I'm rushing to ask questions, and you're saying, well, let's wait. Well, that's bidirectional. That applies to everyone. We've always asked for respect on these cases, but it goes two ways, guys. It's respect to the process of being able to ask questions and the process of individuals to stay in their lanes. Look, bad things happen. When my friend at the sober house dies, I don't think I'm going to put myself in a position of more anguish, right? I go look for peace out in the world, and that's what I do generally. And that's what people I think should do when there's loss. Coming online to look at hurtful comments or things that may even not be hurtful, but you're going to perceive them as hurtful because you're in that mental space to perceive it as such. It's problematic both ways, I guess. But I'm going to continue talking about it. I did it during the Photos Dulos case. I'm not putting blame on this woman. I'm asking questions, and I'm doing it, and I'm even doing it despite the feedback that people give sometimes and the negative feedback. I'm trying to do it with medical and behavioral health advice. So look, exactly what this news anchor said at the end, we don't know everything. This is from a medical doctor who's saying, look, there's 3 different types of Fs: freeze, fold, and fawn. And he goes on to tell me he won't come on to talk about it because what he read in the affidavits is more of a behavioral health issue, right? So now I'm scrambling to get a behavioral health person on because this shock, and I reached out to someone I've known for a long time that's in the behavioral health world, and this was their initial response. Scared body, lost mind. It's a common phrase. Cortex, thinking part, goes offline. We have communication like this all the time when I was trying to help Kyle because that became more of a behavioral health issue, right? And so I really try to approach this with empathy. It's really difficult to approach it with both empathy and as someone that wants answers, that's looking through an affidavit that's saying, well, they mentioned it, right? They mentioned it for a good reason. It's probably going to be, it's going to get a lot uglier if he takes it to trial. And so I feel like I'm entitled to ask these questions respectfully now. Maybe I'm not, I don't know, but I'm trying to do it with all different avenues of information to guide me. I guess I can say that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's really important for people to know. One about us is, before we say something or put something out there, we're both actually the type to go and Google and research and read, and we check and double check, and we do. And you reached out to people constantly about this, and I told you there's somebody in behavioral health I'm trying to get a hold of too, to ask about this. Hopefully we can get them on, but it's we're not just throwing empty stuff out there, and we are trying to be respectful about it. I don't know. I have to say that, like you said, the hypocrisy and all of this really did bother me. Another thing that I kept hearing everybody say was, well, like I said, you don't know, you weren't there. We don't have all the details. Well, right. We don't have all the details. So you don't know any more than I do. I'm asking because I want to understand. The first thing that my brain did, and it does when something doesn't add up, is I start going through scenarios, and like I said, there's 100 different scenarios that can fit. Well, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. But it was a lot of hypocrisy. And I'm trying to watch my words. I had posted a hypothetical on Twitter today. I said, if you were witness, say a really awful car accident happened right in front of you, and you were the only driver around, and say it was an absolutely gruesome car accident. It was scary for you to watch. This just happened. You're having your own response to it. Would it be okay if, because it was so scary and traumatic for you, instead of stopping to check on the people in the cars and calling the police, you just kept driving? And somebody said, okay, well, you're comparing apples to oranges. That's a lot different. And then I didn't tweet this, but, my next thought, and I said this to you, was, okay, what if Dylan was in a house, not with her roommates, but she was a mom in a house with her children? She woke up and it was her children that were murdered after hearing noises and seeing somebody exiting her house. Would you guys all still feel the same? You don't have to answer me. Answer honestly to yourself if your attitude would be the same, or if you'd have different questions, because I feel like people would have a lot of different questions if that were the scenario. And to me, that's apples to apples. Whether it's your roommates in the house or your children in the house, not texting them, maybe she did. That might be a detail we don't know. Not calling them, not going to the rooms to check on them. If I'm hearing all this stuff in this house, I see somebody exit the house in a mask, like I'm doing something, even if I'm absolutely terrified. That's me personally. Again, just like everybody else has said throughout this, you don't know what you would do if you were in that situation. But I have in my brain a pretty good idea of the things that I would do. And I want to know why those were things that she did not do. I'm trying to understand.
And I think that's how we come to understanding as groups, as communities, et cetera, right? If we can't talk about it, how do we come to an understanding? I'd like to understand how, people have come out and said, look, this is a young girl whose brain is forming. She can't make decisions until she's 25. Well, where's that same energy for Kayla Montgomery? And then we look on the other side of the spectrum of the underserved, Darnella Frazier, 17 years old. In the moment of probably one of the most traumatic moments a young 17-year-old could visually see, George Floyd being choked out to death by a police officer, she grabbed her phone and recorded, and changed the course of history, literally. People react differently in all types of situations. And I'm trying to keep being grounded by that. A moment in therapy where my therapist, literally in the room, this woman, Maria, she slapped my hand lightly. I just kept tapping. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? She's like, does that hurt? No, it doesn't hurt. And she reminded me that same tapping can hurt someone who has arthritis, someone whose bones are fragile, someone who's elderly, right? And I'm grounded by that thought. And like, I'm not the type of individual that has ever stayed on or pounced on a person in a case. But I am the type of person that does want answers. I want the motive. And I think that leaving pieces out for so long when there was already a lot of questions around how that 911 call went down. And now, police have an option here to not include that, right? Their case is so strong. Let's save this young woman from what's occurring, or we have to include it because our case is so weak. And they included it. And so I think this will, I don't know. I don't know. I think that we'll know more Thursday, hopefully. I don't think he'll get bail. I do think that typically bail, people need to be reminded that bail is about the ability for that defendant to show up to court, to come to court on his own and show up for his court dates. That's what the system of bail is. Or are they a threat to the community, active threat to the community? But I don't think that they're going to give him bail. I know there's no criminal history that we see, but we don't know if his records from his juvenile or even after 18 for other crimes were sealed in Pennsylvania. So this will be interesting. I'm going to go to the comments. I'm going to open up the phone line now. Maybe give Mima Tish a call. I don't know, Eva. Anything else that I'm missing? I know we talked about the court case going. I'm going to play the Wi-Fi. I know people, the whole point of this was about that Wi-Fi. I'm going to play that Wi-Fi clip one more time so folks can watch that before we discuss it. Open up the phone lines and go to chat.
What is your take on the fact that the guy walked past her and she didn't call 911 for several hours and she'd heard some things? I mean, what's your take on all that?
I know one time in the past that somebody was pretending to break into my house, and Kaylee hid under her bed and called 911 and was too scared to even talk. And then she called me at work, and I prepared her to jump out that window because I didn't know that it was a practical joke. So I think that's a natural thing for girls to freeze up and lock up and put themselves in a position of safety, and I don't hold that against them. I've already checked into the could they have lived, was it a slow bleed out or something, and it wasn't. So there's one bad guy here that I have to focus on. All those other things will slowly come out. I'm sure they catch other people's attention, but for me, I really have to focus on the individual who is responsible for this. And that is a big enough challenge and obstacle that we have to overcome than to worry about, two girls that, were just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I noted, Eva, to you that he mentions bullying, and he basically sort of uses the analogy that even if they were bullying people, that they don't deserve this brutal murder, and that's absolutely correct. But it's interesting that he mentions bullying, that he gravitates to that as the first sort of motive, because everyone's looking for a motive, and he mentions that phrase specifically. I found that interesting.
Yeah, that definitely stood out to you. I feel like he was throwing it out there more as like a hypothetical, but could be like a kind of like a slip of the mind. Maybe it's been something that was brought up to him, or it's been discussed. It's a possibility. It's kind of a sensitive subject too, because you don't want to speak ill of the deceased of these girls. But, it's something I've kind of touched on before. When you pass away, no one's going to say, people aren't talking about your character defects or, maybe some of the harsh things you've done. Everybody's going to say what a great person you were and how wonderful you are. I talk about all the nice things about you. There's a possibility, like maybe they were mean to somebody. Maybe they were a little harsh when rejecting guys, or I don't know. To me, I don't see them as bullies. Not anything that we've heard anywhere from anyone painted them out to be that way. I think it was more hypothetical for him, but and it stood out to you.
It may not mean anything. It just stood out that it's everyone in a time when everyone's looking for a motive. I wouldn't just be willy-nilly throwing stuff out there. But you mentioned previous to this that he's a pretty simple guy, and sometimes we, as in humans, individuals, and especially in true crime, people really evaluate every single word that you say. Yeah. Trying to get to, I think there was, no, that was it. I'm going to get to the chats. I know Sleuthie's in here. Sleuthie, feel free to dial in if you want. For folks that don't know, the TMZ live show went good, I guess, for the most part today. They gave me 3 topics, which were, it was like I showed you this morning. It was like Idaho, which obviously I want because I'm like in that. Kanye West, new mystery woman. And then when I started panicking because I'm like, I can even deal with Ye. Like I listened to his rap music. Like I can even comment on that. And then all of a sudden Eva heard a frantic Eva, like, because there's like 3 other like topics there. I had no idea. What did I pick for the third one eventually? Oh, was it Prince?
Prince Harry, and nose candy.
Yeah. And so like my humor is really dark. So yeah, it was about his cocaine usage over there. So I even reached out to Benji. Hopefully she's still here. Even what did I say? I said, would it be appropriate? And can I say that here? I don't know. I don't know what YouTube does with free speech. I don't know. Anyways, all 3 of those options were on their table. I picked 3 options, and what do? They throw me on live, and they're talking about Camille Vasquez, who's now, I guess, on NBC, talking about the Kohberger case. So, and then they throw me on. They're like, "You're live," and I'm like, we got a Skype call coming in. Hold on 1 second. Go ahead. You're on the air. I don't know who it is.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, how are you? Who's this?
Hey, this is Bobby. How you guys doing?
We're doing well.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Folks out there hear you?
Thanks so much for doing this. You guys are doing a great job. I just had a couple of quick thoughts on a couple of things that were bothering me. One is I sort of think the police left Dylan out to dry a little bit, just because I sort of think you touched this a little bit, but for the PCA, they were just using whatever they needed to just quickly get that arrest warrant. So I'm sure they've interviewed her numerous times, and there's going to be so much more to this story about, what she did do, what she didn't do. And I mean, it's probably going to be hours and hours during the trial of going through this with her, which I'm sure she's not looking forward to, because imagine if, like, it could be something as stupid as she's texting Bethany, like, these assholes won't shut up. How embarrassing, not embarrassing, how awful is that going to be to have to stand there and, like, those texts that you send about your friends sometimes, like, so-and-so and her freaking dog or whatever.
Yeah.
God knows what they were texting each other. And even if something is, they were murdered. So obviously that's, small potatoes, but I could just imagine what she's, to have your whole like laundry thrown out like that. And the police only picked out like 3 quotes. Like, she stood still, she turned around, and like, I can't imagine how many hours and hours and hours they talked to her, and that's what they used.
They used her for the ID. They used her for the ID. I mean, I'm glad you said it, because essentially that's exactly what they did, and she's the one that ends up suffering. But I guess my point to even to others, if this was a underserved black male that did the same thing, I think people would be reacting differently. And I think that it's justified to ask questions, but doing it respectfully. And I think to your point, the police have every single piece of damn evidence from that woman's phone. They downloaded her records. I think my hunch here is that something embarrassing here is being hidden. I don't know by whom, whether it's her or police. And I don't care what it is. I guess at the end of the day, I don't care if you're, and I've said this before in every missing person case, like, transparency is your key, right? It's your key to freedom. I don't care if you're a sex worker. I don't care if you were diddling around with your sister or have incest. I don't care what you're doing. We just want the truth. We want transparency, so we can move on, and this man can be brought to justice. I think that's really what I personally, and maybe people are on the other side and they have other reasons, but that's my reason. Eva?
I agree 100% because I could see something where, you know, she texts them like, oh my God, I'm on the worst room trip ever. And, you know, like, okay, that first of all, that doesn't make her a great PCA witness. So I can see why they left that out because they were in a hurry to get this thing out. But it could be, you know, who knows, like you said, who knows what it was. And I agree. It's probably something you know, she's not too proud of or whatever. But she's going to have to sit there under oath and look at those families, and she's going to have to go through the whole thing anyway at some point. So, you know, it's all going to come out in the wash at some point. I agree that now the one thing I will say, because I think back to college, and we did do stupid ass shit on our dorm rooms where we took fake blood and we put somebody in the shower and we did all kinds of crazy shit. Now we were stupid and immature. I'm sure these kids are more sophisticated than we were when we were younger because I'm a little bit older. But like, I can't imagine that in any scenario that your first thought, even with hearing that racket and stuff, is that it's a serious, like, you just don't think that could happen. Now, why didn't she go look? Maybe she did go look, you know, and maybe they did just go hide, and maybe that's what it was. Like, who knows what, you know, you just can't get into somebody's head. But I will say that I did have one traumatic experience, which I'm not proud of, where I thought I'm some brave, you know, whatever, that I would have handled this totally differently. And I had to have somebody literally carry me out of the thing. And I threw up, my legs went numb. You know, and this was something where I could have helped other people. Like I think, oh my God, in that situation, I would have went and I would have helped other people, but I had to be one of the people that was helped. And I didn't know until I saw what I saw, and my whole body, like my legs went numb, my heart just like, and to this day, I still have to see a psychiatrist 20 years later for it, because I can't go into elevate. There's certain things I can't do because of it. So I'm not even saying that she had that. I'm just saying there's so many things that it could have been. And I feel like the police just picked 3 quotes, and it's like opens up this can of worm, and that's all anybody's talking about. Not all, but you know what I mean? It's got a big focus about what the hell was this girl doing. So that's all I had to say. It could, and it, you know, whether it's shrooms or she passed out or whatever, or she just went back to bed and said the hell with them. Well, who the hell knows? But we'll find out, I guess, in 6 months or a year roughly, I think, by the time it goes to trial.
I've told people on Twitter, like Michelle Draconis, Kent Mulhenny, accused of murder in 2019 in Connecticut. I've been waiting for justice for Jennifer Dulos since that time. 2023, we still don't have a trial. So, I mean, we all hope. People throw around terms like speedy trial. That's not advantageous to defense here, I don't think, at all. Maybe, I don't know. It depends what comes out in the next week, right? A speedy trial would be really advantageous to defense right now, because of what we're seeing in this weak affidavit. That's my opinion. But Eva, I'll let you go, and thank you so much for calling in.
Yeah, thanks. Great show, guys. Thank you. Thanks for letting us all talk about this and get some good other opens your eyes to other thoughts and how other people are looking at the same piece of paper.
Which is exactly what we want. And the whole point of doing this, and the whole point of having conversations on Twitter, is understanding other people's viewpoints. And you hear other people's viewpoints, it gives you new thoughts in your head, new ways to look at things, new ways to understand it. That's the whole point of healthy discussion.
Yeah, exactly. We can't evolve if we stay at one spot and don't have conversations. And so I think this is great. But I'll put that phone number up there one more time. Folks are free to call in. And we are coming up on 58 minutes. So we could wrap up anytime as well, Eva. I'm going to go through the comments. Yeah, the caller was spot on. I think that there's so many pieces here that I think that, like, I just, this whole, like she said, like she threw the roommate under the bus. They knew, and I said that at the beginning of the stream, like police knew going into this that there was already questions over this 911 call, right? Because someone passed out. And I didn't say a word when that happened. I actually came out and said, the first time I even heard the rumor, I said, look, this makes the most sense about everything I've heard so far. Someone coming up on that scene for the first time would go into absolute shock and pass out. And have those normal reactions that a normal human would. Some humans may not go into that same state. the reaction with the masked man, I've never said, look, she's not allowed to go into her room and react the way she reacts, whether that's shock, whether that's laying down. But the amount of time that goes by, I guess that's nobody's judging how you acutely respond to something like that. Overall, though, like over time, you rescind, you realize, okay, I'm under my blankets. However, I deal with stress. Eva, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I'm gonna look. We're about transparency. When I was at the sober house, the sober manager found me in a spot that my EMDR doctor talked about often, which is a dark closet. That's where I feel safe. When I first met you, that's my spot. Literally, when I deal with anxiety or stress, that's my spot. People deal with it differently, but if I stayed in that closet for 24 hours or 8 hours and never dealt with the world, I wouldn't be here. I just wouldn't be able to function. It serves as an acute way to deal with something, right? And we talk about the long-term effects of shock too, and how the brain can protect you. But in that moment, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to acutely go into shock. You're telling me that it may have been normal to see masked men in the house, and that's why you didn't call 911. But you're also saying the warrant that you went into shock. Which one is it? What made you go into shock? And me as a human, I'm going to say, okay, well, that's fair. You went into shock. You waited a half an hour. You waited an hour. You waited even 2 hours. Tell me you waited 2 hours. You got the shakes. You rolled around in the closet. You did whatever you have to do as a human. But then you picked up the phone when your hands were steady and you texted 911 without making a sound. There was a dozen. You call campus security if you have drugs on you and you don't want the police coming down on you while you have half a pound of whatever. I don't know, but you don't go to sleep. And I know, and RW makes a great point. You can't go backwards, and that's not the point of having the discussion. I'm calling a spade a spade, but I'm curious about the motive, like everyone else in the world. And this just adds to further muck.
Absolutely. Yeah, your place is the closet, my place is the bathroom, and we both know where to find each other when we're having a moment. But you're absolutely right, though. So, if you're having a moment and you go into the closet and you're in there for an hour, I know that you're decompressing, and I don't think anything of it. That's your time. If you were in there for 6 hours, I'm not going to let it get to 6 hours before I come and be like, okay, look, there's something's going on here. Are you okay? It is, exactly. Kim said, this is the whole point. The math ain't mathing. Like, for every scenario, just like I said, there could be 100 plausible scenarios, but each one that I come up with in my head, there's still a question at the end of it. Like, it almost fits, but there's still an open-ended question. And it really is for me too. I think that's the hang up for me. It's the passage of the amount of time when we were sitting here researching, because again, we're trying to understand this. I started looking up different types of shock. You have shock, emotional shock. You have shock from trauma. You have shock from like heat stroke, physical shock. There's different kinds of the general idea across the board is it's pretty acute. It's your body goes into shock, whatever response you have, it's acute. You don't stay that way for hours and hours and hours. So I think that's the hang up. The thing that doesn't make the most sense is there's so much time that passed. I understand being scared. I understand freezing up, going and hiding in your room. But the fact that this all happened at 4:00 in the morning and police weren't called until noon the next day, it just doesn't sit right in my brain. And it's not a judgment thing. It's just, that's the way my brain is analyzing it, and it don't add up for me.
Yeah. And I guess the part that frustrates, and we don't know, and we will, I guess like people are blindly defending a person they know nothing about besides she's a young, pretty college student. you know, and people are giving her more empathy than she, from what I can tell right now, based on the data, we're giving the public is giving this woman more empathy than she gave her own roommates. I don't think she knocked on the doors. I don't know if she texted them. I mean, I digress.
Somebody in the comments actually said, when I made the comparison to what if she'd woken up to her children dead as opposed to her roommates, someone said that's absolutely different, that, you know, a mother has different responsibilities as a roommate. I'm sorry, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I feel like the whole picture that's been painted about these girls is that they were all best friends. They were like family, especially when you're in college and you're in sorority. You really are like family, and roommates end up becoming part of your family too after living together long enough. It's also just human decency that if you think that the people in your house are in danger, even if you're in a public place and you think strangers are in danger, you know, that's just human decency. And I keep seeing it in the comments. So you just don't know. You weren't there. You know, we could pretty much say that to every single thing in the entire sleuthing community. For anything that we talk about or discuss or question or speculate, we could just, like, that could just be the end all statement. Like, you don't know, you weren't there. Well, yeah, none of us were there for any of these cases, but everybody has a lot of wild theories. I mean, I'm sorry I pointed this out before, but the hypocrisy is maddening. A lot of the people that are calling us out for questioning this girl for not calling the police are people that dragged innocent human beings through the mud from the get-go with this. They said it was Kaylee's ex-boyfriend. There's frat guys whose names got put out there. And these are all, I'm sorry, they're kids. I actually talked about this one on one of our live streams, saying, you know, this happened in the Kylie Rodney case. You guys are putting innocent people's names out here with no basis whatsoever. We're at least going by the facts of the affidavit.
And I think, like, at the end of the day, if I have to really like do a deep dive, I'm stuck on this case until I learn of a motive. That's just where I am. And people are like, well, you deal with missing kids, and I'm like, well, that's where my brain's at, and that's what my brain wants, and that's what my brain's going to get. And for me, it's a total waste of time if someone knows something and and there's like a relationship there, and we're in the entire true crime community, which you're actively seeing right now, gives all their efforts and energy into, well, could this guy be a serial killer? Let's look at his history. Let's see if this could have been happening throughout the years. And it turns out that there is a relationship here and an actual personal motive where he lost it and went crazy on this house. That's a waste of time and energy, right? And I guess that's selfish, but it is what it is. And we could be chasing tornadoes.
I can't wait to chase tornadoes. It sounds like a pleasant vacation from this right now. Yeah, we actually said last week that we were going to take a break from this case, and it is consumed every day since then. And I think I'm where you're at too. My brain wants a motive. We're already so invested in it. I think that's how everybody else feels too. And I think that's why tensions are really high right now. We've all emotionally invested in this heavily. So, you know, we're kind of like, I think we're all just pent up a little bit with each other, discussing this every day. But I love you guys to death regardless. We can all agree to disagree. I hope everybody else feels the same way. But yeah, I can't wait to go chase tornadoes and be done with this.
It got wild. It got wild at one point. I'm not going to mention names because it's embarrassing for everybody. Somebody sent me a DM asking if somebody else in our community could be the serial killer. Then people wanted me to hold a live stream to see if an individual in here who was transparent enough to call in could be the serial killer. It was like there was this whole like everyone was looking inwards and outwards and every which direction, and now people just want a motive. I guess people have said we may not get it. I don't know. But nonetheless, if there is information like there is tonight that comes out with this wireless, we will try to get it out in a timely manner. I want to put up this later this week, this Chris Miller case. Again, we're going to try to dig on that one. And let me know what else you guys are thinking in terms of any ideas on this case. Or Bryan, I know we're probably going to we will do a live stream on Thursday when he has his court appearance. I think there's going to be a lot of court appearances. I think that we'll probably all get tired of them after probably about the 5th or 6th one. But these first initial ones, I think everyone is looking for just as much information as the next person right now. So.
Yeah, I'm not getting too hopeful about Thursday because we may learn absolutely nothing. But I don't know. I guess at bare minimum we'll learn whether or not he's going to get bail, and then we'll have a whole new slew of things to talk about. So, yeah.
I wanted to just quickly touch on this because this here, if this turns out to pan out true, yeah, no, and Jen, I think that's the beauty of this community. I think we can disagree and still love each other, and we do. This particular information, the received DoorDash versus order, this would explain 2 days ago. I was sort of confused with the timeline, right? Well, confused with it all. The coroner said that they were all sleeping when this occurred. And then we saw a timeline in the affidavit that didn't really make a whole lot of sense. It implied that it took a very, very short amount of time to get in and out. And it wouldn't make sense that she ordered food, ate, made a TikTok, and got to sleep, like the coroner said, within that short amount of time. But she was on TikTok too. And I think a lot of people have thought, well, she was on it. Doesn't mean she needed to be on it. Now, if this turns out to be true and she just received it, right, and I didn't order it, first of all, A, I'm probably not hungry. B, I'm not probably going to just pick up food that someone delivered that's from a random stranger. Am I wrong? So she probably got this food and just put it somewhere and then took off and went to bed, looked at TikTok. And it kind of, I guess what I'm getting at, it fits more, if this were to be true and she didn't order, it fits more in line with my timeline that I have going. It didn't make a lot of sense before. It still doesn't, because you still have a father saying one struggled more. So that implies maybe a little more time. But nonetheless, police say they have him speeding out of there for 420.
It says approximately 420. I think one thing that we can all agree on today, if we want to end it on a harmonious note, is that this is a poorly written affidavit. Okay. It was absolute piss poor writing. The timestamps, there were typos throughout it. At one point, I saw a whole conversation go on about what, was a typo. But people had to explain that it was actually a typo. But yeah, it was just a poorly written affidavit. And I think that's because they were rushing to try and get that warrant as quick as possible at the last minute. Maybe it's because they saw him throwing things away while he's at his parents' house, and they're like, all right, we gotta jump on this. It's gotta happen now. Somebody just banged out the writing on it, but it was absolutely poorly written, and it's caused tension between all of us. I feel like we should sue the person that wrote it.
It really paints a story. I mean, the whole timeline, it paints a story of a police department that really rushed, right? Not getting his DNA to the 29th, pretty much right when he was arrested. They got his DNA to start matching it and really doing the work. You see here, this is and part of my issue when I point out stuff is that I've studied this damn affidavit night after night back in 2019. But you can see the difference, like in the photos doulos, like they list everything. And this is, people are like, well, they don't release that. They don't need to release that. Yeah, you do. To build a solid murder case from start to finish, you need a solid affidavit, arrest warrant. And so when folks start, commenting that there's more to come, this was in the initial affidavit to arrest Fotostulos, all this information. This is just one of 40 pages, and then they released 400 pages after he took his life. Like, this is, I don't know. So for me, it's a little abnormal seeing this warrant, but like we've said privately and now saying publicly, every state is different. Every police officer is different. And as I was getting to earlier, every TMZ interview is different. They asked me about Camille Vasquez. We had the phone call come in when I was describing that. And I guess Camille was commenting on NBC about Kohberger case. So they quickly said, "You're live." And I had to comment, and I said, well, I think it's great that Camille is in the legal landscape. We need someone to replace Nancy Grace, who is the bayleaf of true crime. And both hosts had a good laugh and said, everybody's throwing shots today. And that was my 10 seconds to fame, Eva. Eva's been walking around with sparkles in her eyes. Her mom has been talking to me different on the phone. It's been a wonderful day.
Yeah, Mima is super proud of you. I told you we're gonna change our names and move to LA now. You're famous. They did ask you to come back because you did give him a good giggle. You made Harvey Levin laugh. I'm very impressed. Yeah, and I actually just had to touch on what you were saying too. It really is. It's different everywhere, and we notice that in our conversations all the time because you're a northerner, I'm southerner. You guys don't have sheriffs up there. We have sheriffs here, and you don't understand how that whole system works. So and I didn't know that you guys didn't have sheriffs up north. It was really odd to me. So just like you're looking at the affidavit, for Fotostulos, and then we go fly on over to Idaho and we see their affidavit. And I feel like it'd be a lot different, if the case was here too. So it's also just a regional thing, I guess, how they do business. But I don't like how they do it in Idaho.
But you've seen how they do it consistently in Massachusetts. I mean, this guy, within days, they're just like, fuck it. This lady's like, we've had enough. You saw them, the Massachusetts lady. She's like, they have such a small community. She's telling the judge, like, he was driving by this supermarket, wherever. She's like, you go there. But they, like Massachusetts, they deal with things, New England differently. I don't know if they have sheriffs in Maine. I know for certain, the only kind of sheriff, we don't call them sheriffs. They call them marshals in Connecticut. They're the ones that do process serving and all that. The whole idea that a sheriff, like I saw a commercial in Florida for a sheriff being elected, or like people like, and they actually see money that goes into law enforcement is really scary for me, because from Connecticut, you don't see any elected officials and like maybe chief police, but not like your everyday. I don't know. It's all weird out here, man.
It is very weird. It's actually just this comment. I'm a northern girl married to a southern boy. It's really weird, isn't it? We learn a lot from each other. Everything's so different between up there and down here. But yeah, and you had pointed that out to me too about sheriffs, something I never thought about, because this is just the way it's been. I've lived here my whole life. So but yeah, the fact that they're elected and money goes into like campaigns and stuff like that, it is kind of shady when you think about it, but they've never given a second thought to it.
Shit blows my mind. It always says I came to Florida, but things are different down here. But you learn a lot with that. So, yeah. We are going to keep following Bryan Kohberger. Do not name your kid Brian at all. Don't go to DeSales University for criminology.
We have Bryan Enton. I feel like for every 3 awful Bryans, there's like one good one out there.
What's Enton? What culture or nationality is that?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't know, actually. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it's from, or I was going to try to put an intonation on it, but I don't even think we can do that. I mean, I don't know. But, somebody, I think Jennifer Kovadever pointed out, someone literally asked like a true crime group on Facebook if Bryan Enton could be the serial killer in this case, because he's been on the scene of that house so often. And like someone actually, I can't believe someone had to explain that like this guy is a reporter and he belongs on the scene, but that was a real thing too, I think. So
That was definitely a real thing. Somebody was serious about that. Yeah, between Bryan and being a suspect and, the Alpha David, this has been a wacky ride.
yeah, I think anyone that's been remotely close to calling anything on the case has been like accused of, like you see in these Reddit forums, Facebook forums. I don't know. I saw tonight. I went to grab content for the show, and like the latest Inside Edition is that this guy that's already been debunked, like clearly by an online sleuth community, is being highlighted in Inside Edition as online sleuths highlight this man as possibly Kohberger at the kid's vigil. I always have a hard time with that word. I don't know why, but. Like, not for nothing, I don't know. It's almost like they're gravitating at this whole thing, but they're really fake news because that's not the true online sleuth community, is it? I don't. It just like they basically go grab comments from anywhere, and a lot of people have chimed in on this case from the beginning that aren't, and they'll come out and they'll be like, "I'm not in true crime, but this is my opinion." But I don't think they're really digging. Fresh, like other people have already come out and said like, "This is not that." So I don't know. Well, I do. Media wants the clickbait, so one there.
Yeah, it's kind of funny though, because media they use the term online sleuths positively and negatively, and it depends on what fits their story at the time. Because if the online community helps find somebody, there's a feel-good story for them, and then everybody's singing the praises of online sleuths. But it's been really easy throughout this case to because it's been so talked about online, to point out something negative somebody has done online. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the actual sleuth community. It's 9 times out of 10 it's not. It's just random people on the internet.
Yep. People note that it's just a status hearing. Yeah, I don't think we're going to learn a whole lot for a little bit here. There's so many questions left unanswered. I see people going in the chat room, and like small things, like even the sheath, the knife, like they never say this is the sheath that belongs to the murder weapon, and they really can't because they don't have the murder weapon. This case really has some holes and some deficiencies without the victim's DNA being in that vehicle. I think that's going to be key in nailing this guy and bringing justice to these victims. So we will wait and see. I don't know if I'm missing anything. I don't think I am. I hope that it's only Monday. It feels like it's been a long 2023 already, and it's only been not even 2 weeks. So, but I hope folks get some rest. It's going to be a long week. Keep your face towards the light. Be kind to each other. I heard that I made it to Toronto this evening on TMZ. When you see it, I hope you have a good chuckle. The only thing I could gravitate towards was attacking Nancy Grace. I was like a deer in the spotlight. So I love you all. Please be kind to each other, and we will see you out on Twitter. That's it. I'll let Eva wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that tonight. Please be kind to each other. We're all adults. It's absolutely possible to agree, to disagree, and walk away disagreeing and still love each other after the conversation. I love every single one of you that I didn't agree with today. I hope you feel the same way about me, about us, and I can't wait to have another conversation with you guys.
I can't wait to disagree with you more another day and still be able to love you at the end of the day. I think that's been a huge problem for a little bit. I think both, like speaking in terms of this country as a whole, the world, people need to learn how to disagree and still love each other and still be kind to each other. Have a good night, guys. I love you.